Multiple diagnoses. You might be familiar with that. I shared in my previous video about my change of perspective living with type 1 diabetes, about how in 2017 I had a lot of ailments. Some of them were things that you could put a label on. Some of them could be formally diagnosed by a doctor. Others, not so much. But I wanted to share part of that journey of having multiple diagnoses, multiple ailments, whatever the label may be, to know that you're not alone, and to know that when you take the first step to try and find answers, to get revelation, that you will make progress. In 2017, I physically started really shutting down due to the overexercising, which I previously mentioned. But I also had other ailments, like I call them ailments. They're things that you may be able to identify with, such as really severe anxiety and depression. It got so bad. My family was worried about me. My husband really wanted me to get on medication, and I was determined not to, which everyone has their own journey with medicine, and I believe that it can be a bridge for the next step on your journey as you're trying to find answers and connect dots, but I just didn't feel like it was the right path for me. And something that's very cool is while I was in the depths of that darkness, and again, the same year that I was learning who Jesus was, which was a really tender time because I was in a Bible study and I had pure chaos in my brain as well. So a common diagnosis that you may have, either you had it as a child, you have a child that has it, is ADHD. I never actually received that diagnosis, but as structure was removed from my life as I became an adult, where I did not have the structure of school. College, I kept myself really busy, schedules, all that was removed from me. And ADHD exploded, which I believe it went from ADHD to then anxiety and depression because everything fell out of control. But the really sweet time of being in that Bible study and encountering Jesus was that through all of that, my motivator was to get up at like 5 a.m. to get into the closet of our tiny apartment, which our apartment was really dark. It was not a peaceful place. It was chaotic. It was messy. The closet was my safe place. I made it like a war room. And I opened up the book of John as what we were studying, and I encountered Jesus's death and resurrection in the book of John. And from that point, that kind of almost being like in my back pocket, multiple doors started opening up for me to try different things to be able to find answers. Of course, still living with diabetes, but as I've mentioned before, sometimes when you have other things knocking at the door, the diabetes kind of falls on the back end, and that's what happened with me. I honestly don't recall much about my journey with diabetes during that time because everything was so dark, and I was trying to figure out why I had so many digestive issues, why I was so anxious and depressed, and why I couldn't walk. I went through a phase where I couldn't walk. Diabetes just took the back burner. But through that desperation, even though I gave my life to Jesus, I was attempting to be fully surrendered, but also extremely desperate. So if someone told me this would work, I would try it. So I tried supplements for ADHD. I tried acupuncture, which was a really great open door to be used because the practitioner was a Christian, which is very important to me. There are certain things of Chinese medicine or just alternative medicines that just can get a little messy if you're not careful. But he really helped me press into the Lord, encouraged me along my path for remedies and just other things to help bring me some peace. But one thing I'll never forget, because I took a picture of this day, is I was at acupuncture. He had me doing like 5 days a week, taking 2 weeks off and then 5 more days. And I was traveling for this, about an hour and a half away. Is he could tell, because your words reveal how you're feeling. He could tell that a lot was on my mind. And he put a needle here in my ear. You sit there for, I don't know, 20 minutes. I don't really remember now. But when he removed it, blood came gushing out. And I said, "What happened?" His response, "You're thinking too much." Cool. I don't know what to do with that, other than I can't figure my life out right now and everything feels like it's in shambles. And all I want to do is feel well, to fulfill the things I'm supposed to do in this life, to be able to be a wife, to have friends, to have a life. Like, yeah, I'm thinking because I'm trying to figure it all out, which is where I continue to be at the end of myself. I just became so desperate. Then from that point, again, as I was reading and getting to know Jesus, I became really obsessed with the armor of God and what that looks like and what that means. At this point, I knew that there was a real enemy, and I am here to say that I stand 100% in the belief that there is a real enemy that wants to keep us sick. I don't know where you stand in your personal walk with the Lord, but I believe sickness is not from God. It is part of the curse. And God is such a just Father, and He can't break His own laws. So sickness is a result of sin and iniquity and transgressions, which I won't dive into right now. But at the end of the day, sickness is a result of basically somewhere along our family line turning away from God and not repenting for it. And it does change your DNA. It causes things to manifest. It's no coincidence that when you go to the doctor, they ask for your family history. It's under the name of genetics, but it's because you carry the same things. I share that because I am the only person in the family type 1 diabetes. I am not the only person that has battled ADHD, severe anxiety and depression. Mental illness is on both sides of my family. Again, multiple diagnoses seems to be a common issue for people living with diabetes, one way or another. You know, I know for type 1s, you often do have the ADHD and type 1 diabetes, or you have celiac disease. Type 2 is often linked to like blood pressure, cholesterol. It's just one big mixing pot, basically. And at the end of the day, it's because we have all of these things stirring in us. Because even choosing to stress is something that is not from God. Everything we choose that goes against God or goes against Scripture, like Scripture says, don't worry about tomorrow because today has enough worries. And it says that if He takes care of the flowers and the birds, He'll take care of us. So it's no coincidence that part of the consequences of us choosing to stress or choosing to fall into the same habits, addictions, routines that we've seen in our parents or our grandparents. It's no coincidence that continues to happen. Some of us can white knuckle our way through, but only for so long. And in regards to diabetes, I definitely was a white knuckler, trying to resist it, be defiant, be an overcomer. But now I understand that I overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of my testimony. And we'll continue on this journey of talking about what that looks like with my journey with diabetes, how I define what overcoming even means now. That's actually probably, that would be a good next video, is what does overcoming diabetes look like? But one thing I do know, and I was saying about having a real enemy, the enemy knows the consequence of sin, of separating ourselves from God. Whether it's us or generationally, people in the past have done it, someone's got to step in the gap and say no more. Because God doesn't break his own laws. He cannot turn against himself. That's what makes him just. So we have to step up. But the enemy knows that. And I have said to myself, I'm not sure how many people I've told this to, but I believe type 1 diabetes is one of the enemy's greatest pride points, favorite diseases, because it infiltrates every part of who you are. Blood sugar affects your muscles, your arteries, your brain, your heart, your cholesterol. It affects everything. And of course, it affects all of your organs. Shortly after my diagnosis, I got a letter from JDRF, this little card. It was almost like a membership card, but it was when I was a kid. Type 1 diabetes lessens someone's life by 15 years. Thank you for that encouragement. That's exactly what I needed. Talking about amputations, difficult pregnancies, and that's just the physical stuff. I briefly talked about in a previous video about the mind game, how you have to count carbs, so then you develop this unhealthy relationship with food. I had such an unhealthy relationship with food. And I started putting my hope in food while simultaneously hating that I couldn't eat certain things. So I had this unhealthy relationship with food. I had this unhealthy perspective about myself. I mentioned before about being so independent. Diabetes makes you responsible for everything. Specifically type 1 diabetes, especially when you're a child. You were never meant to have responsibilities at a young age like that. It makes you grow up early. It does affect your childhood. And as much as I believe God uses all things for good, diabetes steals. And scripture says the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And I would say diabetes reflects that pretty dang well. And I really feel that it's one of the enemy's favorite diseases, sicknesses, ailments, whatever you want to call it. And on my journey of having comorbidities, co-diagnoses, whatever you want to call it, ailments, things that pop up, I get healed from something else pops up. The one thing that keeps coming back and rearing its head in new and ugly ways, but I'm understanding why as I walk out this journey, is diabetes. But one thing I can say is all the way back in 2017 when the depression was so high, the anxiety was high, I started understanding ADHD and seeing it on both sides of my family, understanding the war that my family had to fight with mental health that I saw until this year, which meant that I got hit harder. From a scriptural standpoint, it says in Deuteronomy, it talks about blessings and curses, and that curses go for the third and fourth generation. And the thing about it is, and there's a lot of stories in the Bible about that, but the thing about it going 3 or 4 generations deep, and again, not necessarily talking about diabetes, because that's the other thing, is different diseases have similar roots, so it can manifest differently in different people, because at the end of the day, you are your own person. But the thing about it visiting 3 or 4 generations deep is that it may be 3 generations deep, and then this third generation does the same thing. So it's like a reset button where it just extends even further. So instead of just being only 3 to 4 generations, it goes for 10, 15, whatever, because people aren't stepping up. And what is so beautiful, and I guess the hope that I want to come here today for Hopeful Health, is you may be like me, and you may have multiple diagnoses or ailments, unanswered sicknesses, but it doesn't end there. I have had so much freedom and breakthrough. On days where it feels like I'm feeling anxious or I have a manifestation of what looks like ADHD, I know now how to get to the root of it. I'm understanding my life, and I would encourage you to see your life as an onion, that it has multiple layers to it. And not only you as that triune being I've talked about, being spirit, soul, and body, but also with diagnoses or manifestation of symptoms. So I'll use ADHD as an example because it's a very common one that's gotten worse as we have a crazier, busier, more technological world with social media and being available to the world all the time. So with ADHD, that alone, each diagnosis is a little bit like an onion. As you peel back a layer and seeing what a root may be, you may continue to have symptoms of it, but you can pull back each layer one at a time until you get to the center, the core, the thing that is that final chop through the onion, the thing that makes your eyes water, the thing that's so painful. You got to peel back one layer at a time to get to that root, to get to that inside. That's literally the root of an onion, is that core. So you peel. Oh my gosh, it's still here. You peel. Here's the root. Bam, freedom. It is a journey. And I don't know if I ever taught that before, be it type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, type 1.5, all the different types that there are, or any other diagnosis. They're all hard. And we so badly want a solution that's just like this. And sometimes it feels like a device, like a pump would provide that. We hope that it does, and it never satisfies. Will you join me on the journey of peeling back the layers? It reminds me of a video. It was talking about how far technology has come, which I am so grateful for. Because though it has some wall-kicking moments, it's made my life easier at times, right? More simple, probably has extended my life. But we don't want to get so caught up on the next big piece of technology. We have to keep our eyes on the prize, which is to be free of diabetes, not to just manage it better. And I would dare to say that about every single thing. I have seen miracles in my life and other people's lives to not require any more labels or medicines due to a diagnosis, because we have that triune being, spirit, soul, and body. Through the finished work of Jesus Christ and our unity in Him, we can heal some of the things that make our body respond in stress and anxiety, like fears. And I'll share how to deal with some of that on this journey. But will you journey with me? Do you want the hope that I have found? And it's real hope. It's lasting hope. It's not fleeting. I haven't arrived, but I have found the one who has the answers. And I am so grateful. Will you come on this journey with me? Whether you just have diabetes, or you have many that it feels so overwhelming you don't know where to begin. Because here's the hope. Much of it has a similar and same root, which is why you often have more than one diagnosis.